Are you ready to branch out, to take a leap of faith, to love yourself and others fully? Then let go of whatever no longer serves you to take action now on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Erica will energize and excite you to power up your passionate dream that sets your soul on fire. With Erica's E3 approach, equipping, empowering, and enlightening yourself so you can be yourself for yourself. Get ready and get rooted to live a life without regrets, without what ifs, without should haves, and especially without empty feelings from a life unexplored. This hit show helps you build powerful and intentional roots to live it up, love it up, and let it go. Get fearlessly ready and powerfully rooted in your yes with your host, Erica Gifford Mills, and be fearless about your more and stand in your yes. Now on Get Rooted Radio.
Today's episode is titled Living in the After, When Survival Becomes a New Beginning. What happens after tragedy, after the funeral, after the headlines fade, and after everyone else returns to their lives? And that is today, we're going to talk kind of just about that. I am joined by award-winning author, speaker, retired paramedic, psychology student, and Miss Classic Colorado 2026, Teri Busse, for an honest conversation about living in the after. After the unexpected death of her husband and the devastating murder of her son, Teri faced the unimaginable task of rebuilding a life she never expected to live. Together, we will explore grief without an expiration date, resilience without toxic positivity, and the difference between simply surviving and intentionally creating a meaningful life after loss. We'll also discuss Teri's writing, advocacy, scholarship program, podcast, publishing work, and her upcoming project, Stop Saying No for Them. Welcome to the show, Teri Busse. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that intro. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to get talking about this stuff with you.
Me too. So, today's episode is a reminder that survival is not the end of the story. And sometimes it is just really the beginning of what comes next. So listeners, your story is not over. And during this first segment, we're going to talk about the life before the after. And I know I gave, just a bit of an intro, but before we talk about the after, right? Who were you before everything changed?
Well, it's so funny that you asked that. As soon as you said it, I was like, man, that seems like a lifetime ago, like somebody else's life, right? I grew up in Montana, just a normal kid with the best 1980s kid life, running the streets, all of the things that you see. And I hope everybody had a childhood like mine. I stumbled into being a paramedic quite literally by picking up a pamphlet at the end of a counter one day. And I thought, well, those pants are kind of cool. They hold cool scissors. And at my age, that was about the mentality that I had. I did that. I fell into a career I loved, and I did it for the next 25 years. Through that, I met my first husband, who we married young, we were 21 years old, which seemed at the right time. That's what everybody was doing. We just grew apart after 14 years, no big tragedy there, just, grew up and grew apart. By that time, I had adopted his older kiddos that are now mine. They're 30 and 33. And then we had two kiddos together, Sydney and Riley, who are 28. And then Riley, which you mentioned, was murdered in 2021, would have been 26 this year. Then we got a divorce, no big shocker there, it happens. Then I met the guy that I would consider kind of the love of my life, randomly online, of all things, playing solitaire in Yahoo chat. It came across back in the day, and it really was very random. We struck up a conversation. That was it. He was stationed in Hawaii. I lived in Montana. He flew me out, and that quite literally was the end of it. We were married 10 months later. And I really had a good life before everything, we had planned on buying property and living, it was before Highland cows were property. I wanted myself a Texas Longhorn, and I was going to sip my tea and check the mail, ride my Texas Longhorn. All of the things that I think about now, and we'll get into, like, those are other griefs that people don't mention, right? Like, I grieve this life that I thought I was going to have. So, you couldn't have told me anything negative back then. I was living the dream. I had a perfect career. I had great kids. I had a good husband. My family was, I lost my parents and stuff, but my family life was okay. I honestly had no complaints. And, you know, up until the day it happened. And I think that that's what happens is you don't realize the effect of something. I know it sounds silly, like how could you not realize someone dying would be effective, but you don't know everything it affects. You don't until you're living it. There's just so much. You just think, oh, they're dead, and now you move on, but now there's 127 things you didn't think about that actually are affected. So I
Yeah.
think that
I
brings
mean,
us up to, yeah.
we'll unpack that part in
Yeah.
a little bit, but
Yeah.
you mentioned paramedic and
Mhm.
emergency services.
Yes.
So what did a profession like that teach you about life, crisis, trauma, survival, and really just human resilience?
I think that it taught me a coping mechanism of compartmentalization. And it's not that it's taught to you, it's just comes from living it. When you go on a call and it's something traumatic, you have to put it somewhere and then get up and go on the next call. I worked for a pretty busy service, so we didn't have a lot of time in between calls. So you just started packing things away, good, bad, or indifferent, you just moved on. And because I was so young when I started my career, I was 22. That's just sort of became part of my DNA of how I dealt with things. So you're there for people's worst day of their life, and they're having one worst day of their life. Well, for me, it's Tuesday. Part of my job is to be on the worst day of people's lives, not just every day, but multiple times a day. And I'm not saying that to make it sound grander than it is, because there are lots of good events. You're there for the birth of something, and people call because it's not traumatic. But the life that I got into when I did that job, I didn't realize, because who does research? But I think it just takes its toll on you. Eventually, it just chips away at a couple things. It chips away at the way we handle things. And it also chips away at, I don't want to say my morality, but it changes what I see as normal. I see things in such a way that things that would bother the normal person don't bother me. And so it just it just makes my perception on the world a lot different, I think. So it takes a lot to get me upset. It takes a lot to make me judge something. It takes a lot just to get a reaction from me. And sometimes I've learned now in hindsight, that's not the best thing to have.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I feel super lucky to be in a career that I was in for 2 decades where I never called off shift. I may have been sent home once or twice because I was too sick to be there, but I truly loved my job. I got up and was glad to go to work. And I think that, I feel blessed in that area.
Now, you and I know, and unfortunately, a lot of others who are part of this club that none of us ever wanted to be a part of, uh, we know there's a clear line of before and after, right? I know I was like before Connor and after Connor, right? For me, right? So are there, or I should say, what did grief look like during those first few months? And what do people often misunderstand about the early stages of grief?
I think that I have a unique perspective because I can say that when my husband was killed, the way I handled grief was different than after the way my son was murdered. And I'll just go up from the first one. When my husband was killed, I had a 7-month-old and a 3-year-old, and then the kids were teenagers at the time. And I just didn't have time to grieve. And I think that's looked on outside. People are like, well, why are you moving on so fast? And I don't mean moving on, but I didn't have a relationship, but I didn't have time to sit there and boo-hoo over anything. A, now I'm a sole provider. B, I have 2 kids to raise. What am I going to do? So I hired a full-time nanny. So now I'm a boss and a child provider and everything. And so I think people look on the outside and say, oh, she's doing well. She's going to work. She has a nanny. And all the while, I'm literally falling apart inside. I don't see it at the time. And I think people use the term survival mode as like as a shiny word. But unless you're in it, I don't think you know you're in it. And if you say something about it, you probably never really lived in it. And I don't mean that as a dig on anything, but I assure you, I did not realize that I was in survival mode, that I was really doing the bare minimum. And when you go back to asking like what I learned in my job that applied, like how it changed who I was, because as a paramedic, your job is to be in the back of the ambulance and figure it out. I can assure you, asking for help was nothing that I was ever going to do. So that became something that's probably not the best to live with it as well.
Right.
So after Tom died, I like to say that when Tom died, it changed my life. And then when Riley was murdered, it changed what I was going to do with my life. And I think that that's something that you can, understand. And maybe it's because it's our kids that were killed and you just see this snuff out of a life. It makes a difference.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we could keep talking about this, but we have to take a quick break. But before we do, when we come back, we're gonna talk about grief, survival, and living in the after. But before we go on all out, tell folks how they can contact you, learn more about you, learn where they can get your books, and just all that you have going on.
Perfect. So the easiest way to get the most information about me is my website, which is just teribusse.com. In there, it gives a link to all of my books, which are available on all platforms. And then it just gives, I kind of have a blog in there that gives you update stuff of what's going on, what I have going, my next projects. And it's just really the easiest way to see the spider web of stuff that I have out there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You're listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Imagine having a team of top-notch attorneys and identity protection experts right at your fingertips 24/7. That's the power of Legal Shield and ID Shield. Legal Shield gives you access to affordable legal services for everything from contracts to traffic tickets. And ID Shield protects your personal information, and it's monitored against identity theft with restoration support if anything goes wrong. Visit the link in the show notes of this episode for more information.
You're thinking your purpose in life?
What if your training isn't enough?
We remember a time when you could
Welcome back to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. If you missed any portion of today's episode, you can catch it on getrootedradio.com. Don't forget to subscribe online to receive the latest news, events, specials, and words of encouragement. That's at getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Teri Busse. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me. I love this.
And during our first segment, for those who may have missed it, we talked about the life before the after. And during this segment, we're going to talk about grief, survival, and living in the after. So I think first, for our listeners, what does that phrase, living in the after, mean to you?
It means not just right after an event, and it doesn't have to be for anybody. It doesn't have to be a death. It could be any traumatic event that changes your life. You have that first small amount where your whole support, your tribe, everybody's there for you. And that certainly is living in the after. But more what I talk about is the days, the months, the years after an event. To me, this is all still very relevant and important. And to the people I've met, some of them have no idea what I've gone through, or it slipped their mind because it's just not part of their life. So for people that have been in it, living in the afters every day, carrying on this event, but still figuring out how to be a productive citizen, how to make something out of nothing, and just how to go on and be, I don't want to say positive, but just to go on after something and then keep going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did, because we were talking during break, but how did addiction and recovery become part of your family's larger story?
So in going back just a little bit, so as a paramedic, it's in the culture, drinking, not being an alcoholic, but drinking is in the culture. And that just became a part of the way at the end of the shift, how to unwind. And that became something else I would learn, that I don't want to say the voices in my head, but the calls in your head and things that you're trying to quiet, that's an easy way to nip it in the bud. And so that became sort of part of my learning coping mechanisms as well. And then you just go 20 years of doing that. it's normal to be drinking. You know, I would never drink and drive. If somebody else was drinking, there was always a designated driver. But after my husband was killed, it really, when I say it changed my life, it changed my life. I started drinking more to now not just quiet from work stuff, but now the stress of at home, because now I feel like I'm lonely, I'm mad, I'm really mad, I'm sad, I have to be a mom, I have to be a boss to my nanny, all these jobs I didn't sign up for that I now have to do with a smile, because that's what you have to do. People say, oh, and you've probably heard this, oh, you're resilient. I'd be like, I don't want to be, I don't have a choice. This is something that was thrown on my plate. So I started drinking more, and then I started drinking a lot more. Mixing, you know, I decided to be in a relationship that was the wrong one. That adds fuel to the fire, and it becomes more of an addiction. And I tell you, it was just a slippery slope. What started out as something to give temporary relief became something that I did every day. And then I did it all day, every day. And back when I said your moral compass changes sometimes, mine certainly did. I went from being the person that would never drink and drive regardless. Now I'm the person pouring a drink, telling my girls to get in the truck and we're going to go. So now I'm drinking and driving with my kids in the car, and I don't care. I don't even think about it. So now, of course, that's terrible, but I'm a firefighter and a paramedic who's doing this. So I know all of the outcome, and it doesn't matter. Alcohol somehow is able to make anything wrong okay. Like not right, but we can get through it. So
You can
that's what I did.
justify.
You
You
can.
start it. Yeah, you start justifying. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I deserve this. I don't think I ever said that, but I'm somewhere in my mind that's what was happening.
Yeah.
And then I decided to get sober. I got sick of my own crap, if you will, and I just knew that, you know, there's a whole episode in that, but I got sober, and it took me some time, but I did it for myself, which is the only way you can do it. You can't do it for someone else. And when I did, I came home. I was living in Kansas City at the time. I came home, and my son was living outside of there. And he was the first person I got to see when I came home, and I went and seen him. And he was so proud, because everybody can see it. Whatever your ailment is, other people can see it. And I never hid that I was drinking, but my kids were concerned about me. And, you know, at the time he was 20. And he was just proud, and he gave me the biggest hug, and the smile so good. And the last picture I have with him is us sitting on that porch at the house he was living at. And he took a picture, and he was just, the smile is so big. And it's a memory that I don't ever want to dilute with drinking again. So alcohol already took so much from me. At this point, I can't future trip, but at this point, I don't ever want to drink again. I don't ever want to rob that memory I have of my son, which was the last time I ever seen him in person. And you don't know that's going to be the last time when it is. So I can't create more memories again with him. So I'm not going to drink again. And that brings me to kind of living in the after. You know, we alluded to, I had two events. 6 months after I was sober, I got a phone call from the police department looking for my son, and ultimately he had been murdered. And so I don't want to say I wanted to drink. I really went back to the craving I had was never for alcohol. It was to quiet my mind, because I didn't know how, because the only mechanism I'd ever had before was to shove everything in a box. Well, now I'm 6 months into starting to unpack this box. I don't have the bandwidth to do anything with it. So it was a struggle. I didn't do very well. And I don't mean that I was doing bad things. I just mean internally, I just was struggling. And I did that for a long time. But I did one foot in front of the other, one day at a time, and I white knuckled through it. And you know, what else can you do? Right?
Yeah. During the last segment, you had said losing your husband changed your life. Right. But losing your son changed what you chose to do with it.
Right. And I think
elaborate on that statement.
So I think so. I can look back and now and see I lost my husband and I became a drown. It's easy to say. And I'm not meaning to be funny, but that's kind of the way.
No, but
yeah.
Hey,
I get it.
I drank and it's exactly right. It was to numb that.
Yeah, it hurts.
Everything.
Yeah, it just hurts. And especially if you're one that doesn't ask for help. I don't even know if I could have. I don't think I had I know that sounds silly, but I just don't think I had it in me to ask for help. So yeah, so losing Tom changed who I was. Losing Riley, and I don't know if it's because he was a kiddo, he's 21 years old. He has no life. My husband was a decorated combat veteran. Like if you look him up on the internet, he's got stuff that comes up. At this time, you look at my son, and all that comes up is this horrible homicide. And that killed me because we're in a day and age of digital evidence. If nobody's going to pick up a newspaper, well, 98% of the people aren't going to pick up a newspaper and read anything. So I just felt like I couldn't let that be how Riley's legacy lived out. A, his legacy is 21 years, which isn't really a legacy. And B, I don't want it to end like that. So the first thing I thought that I knew how to do, I was like, well, I'm going to write a book. Who am I to write a book? I figured it out. And it went from there. And then ultimately I thought to myself, I don't want to profit off my son's murder. What can I do? And so then I went to my son liked to weld and he wanted to go back to welding school. So I went to the local welding school here in Colorado Springs, and they're a nonprofit, and they allowed me to set up a scholarship through their nonprofit. So all the proceeds that I make from anything that has to do with Riley go to the welding scholarship, so that I feel like now Riley's giving back, because now there's a sticker or an emblem that says the Riley James Memorial Scholarship. And that's like carries through these kids that never knew my son. Now, I don't mean like they're thanking my son, but there's this pay it forward thing. And for me, that's all that matters. Like it's not about the money. It's not about anything. It's that I want my son to be remembered for the right things. And, you don't know what to do. And so that's what I did. And I feel good about that. And so that makes me think it was the right decision. Right.
Yeah. Now, 2 more questions before we go to break, which I know is rapidly coming up, but what is the difference between surviving a tragedy and beginning to live again?
Surviving it means that you're getting up every day, you're going to work, you're doing the things that you need to do, but in your head, I don't know if you want to call it depression, maybe that's what it was, but I felt no future. I didn't see a future. I didn't think 2 years from now. I didn't think 2 weeks from now for the longest time. It was just being in the day. And that's surviving. That's being in survival mode. Where I think now I'm in a part now where I'm living, I'm planning a future. I have these projects that I want to do that I have passion about. I can assure you I had passion to do nothing before. And I think that's where the biggest difference is in me, was living life versus being involved in my own life. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah. So, making those intentional choices like you're doing now.
Right.
Yeah. So how can friends and family better support someone who is living in the after?
I think you need to be specific. When it's anybody, if you say, can I do something for you? Can I help you? Probably going to say no, because people don't want to burden other people. Be specific and say, hey, I'm going to bring over dinner tonight. Probably not going to say no. Or, hey, I had like my grandma hired a cleaning service for my house. I didn't get a chance to say no. She's just like, hey, they're going to be there. So I just think be more deliberate in how you want to help, because I don't have, or somebody doesn't have the bandwidth. I use that word a lot because I think you don't have it to make a decision. Like, even if it's bring food over, like, I don't know,
Yeah. I thought that's great. Well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about turning pain into purpose without erasing the pain. But before we go, Teri, can you tell folks how they can connect with you?
Yes. So the easiest way to connect is to go to my website, teribusse.com. And the other thing that you can do, there's a Facebook page called Justice for Riley James. And that gives a lot of updates because his murder is unresolved. So I keep it up there, and I share a lot of, unsolved cases on there as well. And that's just another good place to see anything that I've got going on related to Riley or anything like that.
Thank you so much. You're listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Imagine having a team of top-notch attorneys and identity protection experts right at your fingertips 24/7. That's the power of Legal Shield and ID Shield. Legal Shield gives you access to affordable legal services for everything from contracts to traffic tickets. And ID Shield protects your personal information, and it's monitored against identity theft with restoration support if anything goes wrong. Visit the link in the show notes of this episode for more information.
You're thinking your purpose in life? Become a certified hypnotherapist and regressionist today. Bryn Blankenship is a renowned certified master hypnotherapist, international instructor, and author. In addition to her own show, Afterlife Teacher, Soul Lessons Bringing You Full Circle, Bryn is a popular radio show guest who speaks about her soul expression spiritual regression, her transformative method for finding and following your soul's guidance. For more information on her hypnoregression and afterlife regression certification programs, visit brynblankenship.com.
What if your training isn't enough? The Multicultural Mindset Podcast invites counselors and therapists to unlearn the one-size-fits-all approach. This isn't cultural competence. It's a way of being that brings racialized experiences from the margins to the very center of care. Let's stop pathologizing Black pain and start challenging the system that created the bias in the first place. Visit newseasons.training to subscribe.
We remember a time when you could simply form a thought and it would manifest. The harmony was forgotten, but it is returning now. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia will take you on adventures through the heart and spirit, exploring who we once were and how to awaken that power today. Julia studied under the guidance of wolves, learning from their wisdom to master a higher frequency for new state of mind. Learn to master the secrets of manifestation. Visit onetrueself.com.
We're back on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Don't forget to visit getrootedradio.com to listen to a replay of this episode, sign up for helpful tips, and learn about upcoming events. That's getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Teri Busse. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you letting me be here.
Absolutely. So during the last few segments, we talked about the life before the after and grief, survival, and living in the after. So during this segment, I really want to get into turning pain into purpose, because I believe in that 100%. But also without erasing that pain, because we're not trying to get rid of it, but let's do something with it.
Right.
Well, I want to talk about first your book, right? So you can see that it's the 13 Days of Silence. So when did you first begin putting your story into words and made you, really led you to write your international best-selling memoir, The 13 Days of Silence?
So I think I always knew I wanted to write it because I felt so jaded after the trial, because it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. And I just felt so let down by the system, by my own expectations, which we all know, your own expectations sometimes lead to your greatest disappointments. But I didn't know how to write a book, and I didn't know how I was going to write this, because I wasn't doing well for a very long time. I was very depressed. And I can look back and see it now. I was prickly, I was irritable, I was not a fun person to be around. And if you know trauma, you also know that it does weird things with your brain. I don't remember specifically a lot of things. I don't remember events a lot. I mean, I know I was there, but details are fuzzy. And the gift that I had from being an EMS for 25 years is I knew this going into it. So I wrote notes, pretty meticulous notes during the trial. And I took 172 pages of notes through that trial. And it wasn't until I was ready to sit down and go through it and decide I was going to write Riley's story, because I wanted to make it factual. It's based on I didn't make up anything. It's based on what I wrote, what I remember. I reached out to some of the police officers that are still my friends on there and being like, I just want to fact check this a little bit, all of that. And when you say to do it without erasing the pain, I want to say that's how I feel like I wrote the book. It's not a journalistic book. It doesn't bring you answers. You're not going to find resolution in it, but I want to tell my boy's story. And the only way I could do it was to do it truthfully and honestly, and all the bad parts that are involved, right? I mean, he was murdered and there's nobody held accountable for it. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The other thing I'm not going to do is give the defendants a lot of energy. I don't say their name unless I have to. I try to leave them out of anything because they don't deserve any of my attention. While lots of other people want details, but it's my story to tell.
Yeah.
So in my story, I don't leave it out. I leave in my addiction. I leave in that I currently am in ketamine therapy to help with the nightmares, because I'll be honest with you, I had very vivid nightmares where I could smell my son's burning body for months, and ketamine therapy is the only thing that helped me. It probably saved my life. And those are the things that I'm not going to live out. So, but through that, me writing about that and being open and being vulnerable has led to me getting messages from other people that say, thank you. I thought I was the only one. I felt ashamed that I had to seek this medicine, because it's when you say ketamine, people are like, oh, ketamine. And it's not like that. It's microdosing, and it's a whole thing we can go into. But out of that, to make other people not feel alone has been pretty rewarding. And it's nothing I intended in writing the book, but it makes me realize that's why you don't change what happened. You just present it the way it was. And as you say, make pain into purpose. That's purpose I never intended or saw that could come out of it. The scholarship, of course, was more purposeful. And of course, that's to pay things forward a little bit more. And I think it just goes back to, because my son's life was cut so short, and then between my husband's death and his murder and me getting sober, I wasted so much time just being stuck in my own head and in my own rut. And it's my own judgment. I don't have people saying negative things about me, but for my self gratification, I need to do something. And so all I can do is write. I wrote Riley's book. I wrote a book called When Getting Out of Bed is the Hardest Part. And that won the book of the year at the International Impact Book Award for grief and bereavement. So somehow through all of this, my psychology degree that I'm getting, I've been able to help people. And, those are the silent winners that you never see coming, but here we are. And I'm grateful to be doing it, right? I never saw this happening. A year ago, if you would have told me I was on going to be on your podcast, it just wasn't. I couldn't have said it wasn't on my bingo card, because I wouldn't have even thought to put it on there. You know what I mean? It's so far out of what happened. So to take the trajectory that I was on and now be on a path where I'm able to start helping people and not feel like I don't belong in the room, because at first you're like, who am I to help anyone? I'm just a mom. But I think what I've learned is that people appreciate someone who's lived it versus someone who's read a book and tells them how they should feel. And
Yes.
I think that's where I'm at, is I own where I am and what I've been through. And if I have the ability to pay it forward, say it out loud, live out loud, then I'm okay doing it.
And I 100% agree with you. Like all of that, because it is right. I have people saying like, well, who do you think you are? Or what are your credentials for doing this? Or, some of those sort of things. And I'm like, what? Sometimes I have the best credentials of all and the worst.
Right.
And I hope you never have to live through it. Right.
Exactly.
But, you've had some great things, right? You've got the book.
Mhm.
You also got a podcast,
Mhm.
and you're also a screenplay, right?
Yes.
So, and all that is going towards making sure that, other people know what to do, right? How to navigate the grief, or also help you to navigate. And so what is the difference, right? So people might say, well, you already wrote the book. Why you need to do a podcast? Or what about the screenplay? So is there a difference
because
between how the medium, right?
It is, and it's because every person is different in the way they receive something. There's people that aren't going to read the book, which is why the audiobook's coming out. And there's people that's going to take different things from it. And what I've learned is that the message that I've lived through all of this, it's not just Riley's murder, because that certainly is part of it, but it's the other part of living through it, of being able to function and say that you're not doing okay and then figure it out and come out on the other side. Somehow that has become not more important, but as equally important, to show people that it's okay to fail or fail-ish, however you want to do it, but get back up, dust yourself off, all of the cliches that you've ever heard, to do that and keep going on and be an inspiration to someone else. And those are words that I would have never used before, but now hearing them from people that have interacted with me. It wasn't what I set out to do, but I'm glad that I can do it and make somebody else not feel alone. And it's just something, just like you said, I believe someone that's lived it more than someone that has PhD behind their name, right? Because, it's, anybody can cook out of a cookbook, but some of the best food is soul food kitchen where they just put it all in there, right? Because they know what good food tastes like. So,
well, and I love that because, I went back and studied military psychology. I got my master's in military psychology. And one of the reasons I did that was reverse of almost of what you're saying. I didn't want to just be seen as the grieving mother. I had no problem being seen as the grieving mother, but I also wanted, because I wasn't in the military, right? So I didn't have some of that, but I wanted somebody to say, yeah, not only did she live through it, but she does have the textbook knowledge as well. But my problem was I had a hard time, and I still have a hard time, knowing that two things can be true, right? Purpose and that profound grief, they can exist at the same time. That's hard, right? That's sometimes really hard for me to say, like, so how do, it's like purpose it's not only about honoring what we've lost, but it's also allowing ourselves to pursue what may still be possible. So how do you protect yourself emotionally, right? Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all that, while sharing such a personal story that you've gone through?
I think it can wrap around to the beginning when in EMS, how I was taught to deal with things, to compartmentalize. I think I'm still doing that. Who knew at the time that being able to do that for 20 years, 25 years, prepared me to survive those two losses. I didn't know that. I don't know if I could have survived them as well. Not that I did as well. I don't know what would have happened. I can't know what I don't know, but I do know that to be able to compartmentalize and to still function helped me be here today. I still think I do compartmentalize things. I just think not as deep. I'm able to put them away just for now, but then go back and address them. I am an AA, I do work a program, and it goes back to having, at the end of the day, I want to cross things off my list. I don't want to make another page for tomorrow. I want to wake up tomorrow and have a fresh page. So if I've put something off, I need to address it a little bit. And I try to do that. And it's not always easy, but my default now isn't to shove it in the box and never look at it again. So I'm not better. I'm getting better, but it's all in baby steps. And I think that's how I'm able to live, to coincide, because as you mentioned, the podcast that I do for me is called Living in the After, because in all of this, much like you meet people with stories and they just want to tell their story, right? So I'm not a lot of an empath, but I'm a little enough to where I do absorb other people's stories because I do feel for them. And so I do realize that after I do something, I do need to take a minute, journal about it. Turns out writing is how I get it out. And it works for me. I don't know that it would work for anybody. I don't know that you could have told me 2 years ago it was going to work for me, but it works. And, until it doesn't. And so I did. I wrote the reason the screenplay was that some people don't read. And now I'm doing the stage play because some people don't go to movies. And in anybody's story, there's more than one story. In Riley's story, it's more than just his murder. It's a mom surviving it. I also have daughters who survived it. So I can highlight other parts of it. And when everything comes together, it's a bigger picture. And I didn't know that's what I was doing, but now I can look back and see it's not just this linear timeline. It really is events through all of it.
Oh, 100%. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to finish out the show with Stop Saying No for Them. Yes. This is Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Imagine having a team of top-notch attorneys and identity protection experts right at your fingertips 24/7. That's the power of Legal Shield and ID Shield. Legal Shield gives you access to affordable legal services for everything from contracts to traffic tickets. And ID Shield protects your personal information, and it's monitored against identity theft with restoration support if anything goes wrong. Visit the link in the show notes of this episode for more information.
Rethinking your purpose in life? Become a certified hypnotherapist and regressionist today. Bryn Blankenship is a renowned certified master hypnotherapist, international instructor, and author. In addition to her own show, Afterlife Teacher, Soul Lessons Bringing You Full Circle, Bryn is a popular radio show guest who speaks about her soul expression spiritual regression, her transformative method for finding and following your soul's guidance. For more information on her hypnoregression and afterlife regression certification programs, visit brynblankenship.com.
What if your training isn't enough? The Multicultural Mindset Podcast invites counselors and therapists to unlearn the one-size-fits-all approach. This isn't cultural competence. It's a way of being that brings racialized experiences from the margins to the very center of care. Let's stop pathologizing Black pain and start challenging the system that created the bias in the first place. Visit newseasons.training to subscribe.
We remember a time when you could simply form a thought and it would manifest. The harmony was forgotten, but it is returning now. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia will take you on adventures through the heart and spirit, exploring who we once were and how to awaken that power today. Julia studied under the guidance of wolves, learning from their wisdom to master a higher frequency for new state of mind. Learn to master the secrets of manifestation. Visit onetrueself.com.
Welcome back to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. If you missed any of the information during the last segments, go to getrootedradio.com to listen to the replay. Don't forget to subscribe, sign up for tips and special events and pricing for upcoming coaching and speaking sessions at getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Teri Busse. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Tell listeners how they can connect with you, learn more on how they can get your book, listen to your podcast, and all the things that you have going on.
Yes, so the easiest way is my website, teribusse.com. It'll have links to the podcast, which is on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and that is called 13 Days of Silence, Living in the After with your host, Terry Lynn. And that's been fun to do. And then, like I said, my website, and then my books are available, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or any other place that you get your books.
Wonderful. So during the last segments, we talked about the life before the after, grief, survival, and living in the after, and turning pain into purpose without erasing the pain. And during this last segment, we're going to discuss stop saying no for them.
Yes.
So that phrase, right? What inspired it, and what is the upcoming project around the stop saying no for them?
It came from when I don't want to be like, I'm just a paramedic and a mom, but that's my life skill. That's what I do. No marketing, no anything business-wise, if you will. And of course, this is going to go deeper than that, but where it came from was once I wrote a book, then I was like, how do I get it out there in the world? And at the time, I was very uncomfortable pitching myself, putting myself out there, because I feel like there's a part of us that self-sabotages. Like, I don't belong in that room. I'm not qualified to do that. Who am I to put myself out there? It's like we're telling ourselves no, but it's almost to protect ourselves because we don't like rejection. So after doing that, for getting pumping myself up to just do it, I realized the rejection is not that big of a deal. A rejection is information. That's all it is. And then I felt better about it. And then I thought, the more I looked online for resources just to give myself more information, I couldn't really find that. There's lots on self-sabotage or positive speaking, but the theory of just don't say no for them, right? Don't take your don't take your option away before you even put it out there. So I like to say now, even to myself, or I've done a couple lectures, cast your net wide. That's your job. Bring it in, see what fish are in there. If you don't want them, throw them back. But you have to try. And we've all been told that, try and try again. We all know it. And I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm just trying to put it maybe so that somebody else can hear it differently and realize that rejection is not the end of the day. Because honestly, I know, because I've had bad days. What if you're pitching to be in a bookstore And your person that gets it, we'll just call her Tammy, is sitting there and she's PO'd at the world and she's not doing anything. She rejects everything that day because she just doesn't care. And now you get this rejection and your attitude and your about your project or anything is hinged on this no, when it's just Tammy's bad Tuesday. You really just need to take it as it's not you, it's not personal. And even if it is, it's probably not that personal. You collect your denominators, right? We're on a show, you're successful, and people say, oh, wow, look at Erica, all the stuff she has. Because they see this, they don't see the 100 things on the bottom number that are what you tried. And I think sometimes we focus on that instant gratification. We forgot we really have to work for what we're doing. And so I feel like that's what Stop Saying No for them. I want it to be is believe in yourself, of course, but it's not self-help. It's the laws of average, the ratio, all of that stuff. I just want a resource for people, and I talk in layman terms, and I hope that that's the way it'll come across.
And I love all that, because the people who fail are truly the people who don't try, right? If you don't go out there, if you don't put yourself out there, you don't know, right? 5 people could have said no, but it only takes 1 yes. And then we can go through, because there are so many people, they reject themselves before anybody else gets the opportunity to do it. And that's that self-sabotage. And we do have a lot of times things that we tell ourselves, right? I always say, stop asking for permission.
Exactly.
You're the one who's holding you back. It's not necessarily somebody else, it's yourself. And we also have something else in common, which I thought was quite interesting. So I'm Ms. Global Ambassador, Ms. Global Queen Ambassador, Wisconsin, right? And you stepped into a role of Miss Classic Colorado 2026.
Yes.
And
yes.
Why? Why did you do that?
I'll tell you.
What does that represent for you personally and everything?
It started as one thing and it ended as something else, often as things do. But after I wrote the book for Riley, I know, I don't know, 500 people in my life. And of course, they're going to support me and do things. But then I thought, how am I going to get my name out there? How am I going to do anything? I needed a bigger platform. And my platform wasn't buy my book, watch my son. It was Rooted in Resilience is my platform. And that just got me out there to meet more people, networking, if you will. And it gave me permission. I don't know why in this day and age we need permission, but it gave me permission with that title to make those phone calls, to send that email, because now I had a little padding behind my name, and I know it's silly and we shouldn't need it, but it's part of what it is. And you get reception, because when I walk into a room as myself, people are polite and cordial. When I walk into the room with the crown and the sash, people come up and talk to you. It opens up doors. I had no idea it was going to do that. Also, I didn't realize the amount of wonderful people I would meet. I definitely had a preconceived notion of what it would be, and it's not. And if I could break that stigma, man, these women are beautiful, beautiful women. And I don't mean that in the pageant world. I mean intellectually and everything. And it's been such a wonderful opportunity. And I know that sounds almost cliche, but man, I had no idea what I was getting into. And then now it's when I can look at my story at age 52, at what I've been through the last 10 years, recovery, addiction, my rock bottom. And now, I have a picture of me in a crown with the the queen, right? It's pretty amazing. And it's almost hard for me to say that, but for my daughters that are still 10 and 13, they're able to see, their mom was not doing well. And now here I am at the other end. And if nothing else, they get to see me rise after I fell.
And I think that's a beautiful era that we should stop. Because I know we could keep talking forever. So I just want to, tell listeners, your story does not have to end where your life broke open. You are allowed to grieve what was, honor what was lost, and still become curious about what could have come next. So stop saying no for them. Let the world answer for itself. And give yourself permission to say yes. Thank you again, Teri, for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Erica. I really appreciate it.
And I want to thank all of you for tuning in to Get Rooted Radio. If you missed any part of today's episode or want to listen again, go to getrootedradio.com for the podcast and tune in the first and third Monday of each month at 4 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Pacific. And as we close out today's episode, I want to remind all of our listeners that you are worthy. If you are hurting or need help, please know the world needs you and it is a better place with you in it. Don't let the hard days win. Reach out for assistance because it is okay to not be okay. Call or text the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline or text HOME, HOME, to 741-741 to reach a trained crisis counselor through Crisis Text Line. Both are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and are free. Thank you for tuning in. I'm looking forward to the next time on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Visit getrootedradio.com if you've missed any part of this hit show, and tune in on transformationtalkradio.com to live fearlessly in your more and powerfully rooted in your unlimited yes. For more information and to work with Erica directly, visit getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com, and get ready to live it up, love it up, and let it go.